Have you noticed something strange happening to you lately? That relentless chase for a relationship, the one that used to consume your thoughts, has it simply started to fade away? Those dating apps you obsessively checked, do they now seem irrelevant? That feeling of incompleteness for being single, the one that used to torment you, has it simply dissolved? And in its place, something you didn't expect has emerged, a profound peace in being alone. If this is happening to you, you're not broken. You haven't become incapable of love. Something much deeper is going on, and Eckhart Tolle, he has an explanation that will completely change how you understand love, relationships, and most importantly, how you understand yourself. But before I reveal this explanation, I need you to understand something crucial. Because what I'm about to share, it contradicts everything that society, pop culture, and even your family have taught you about love and happiness. And if you aren't prepared to hear this, it might seem disturbing. But if you're on a journey of awakening, it's going to sound like the most liberating truth you've ever heard. If you've felt odd for not wanting to pursue relationships like you used to, you're not alone. If you've ever wondered if there's something wrong with you because the idea of finding that special someone doesn't excite you anymore, you're not alone. If you've noticed that your energy has shifted and that the loneliness that once felt unbearable now feels preferable to shallow relationships, you need to hear this until the end. Eckhart Tolle makes a statement that shocks most people the first time they hear it. He says that relationships exist to make you conscious, not to make you happy. Reread that. Relationships exist to make you conscious, not happy. And that single sentence changes everything. Society has conditioned us to believe that finding romantic love is the ultimate goal, that without a partner, we are incomplete, that true happiness is only possible when we find our soulmate. Movies, songs, stories since childhood have hammered this message into our subconscious. But Tolle reveals something profoundly different. He teaches that the reason the romantic love relationship is such an intense and universally sought-after experience is because it seems to offer liberation from a deeply rooted state of fear, need, lack, and incompleteness. Did you catch what he said? It seems to offer liberation. It doesn't actually offer it. It only seems to. And here's the paradox that will start to make sense of everything you're experiencing. When you're in a spiritual awakening, you begin to realize that what you were seeking outside of yourself has actually always been within. The wholeness you thought a relationship would bring, you discover already exists in you. The peace you thought would only come with the love of another, you find in the presence with yourself. And when that happens, the urgency to seek disappears. Not because you've become cold or incapable of love, but because you've discovered the source. But hold on, this doesn't mean that awakened people can't have relationships. It means something much more nuanced and important. Tolle makes a crucial distinction between what he calls romantic love and true love. He says that true love has no opposite. If your love has an opposite, then it's not love. It's a strong need of the ego. Let me explain this in a way that you'll never forget. Conventional romantic love operates in polarities. It comes with fear of loss, jealousy, possessiveness, need for validation. When you love someone romantically, in the conventional way, you depend on that person to feel complete. If they reject you, you feel devastated. If they give you attention, you feel on top of the world. Your emotional state is at the mercy of another person. That's not love. It's emotional dependence. disguised as love. And here comes the part that transforms everything. Tolle states that what is conventionally called love is a strategy of the ego to avoid surrender. You're looking to someone else to give you what can only come to you in the state of surrender. Read that again. Conventional romantic love, D, is a strategy of the ego to avoid surrender. The ego doesn't want to surrender. It wants to control. It wants guarantees. It wants security. And it uses the romantic relationship as a way to get all of this without having to do the internal work of getting to know yourself, of healing yourself, of completing yourself. And when you awaken, you see through this illusion, and suddenly, the search doesn't make sense anymore. A research published in October of 2024 by Nature Communications Psychology explored the neurobiological basis of the human attachment system. The researchers discovered that secure attachment appears to equip individuals with an innate calming mechanism in the face of stress. Brain scans show that people with secure attachment often exhibit reduced activation of the amygdala when exposed to negative or threatening stimuli. And here's the connection that almost no one makes. When you develop presence through contemplative practices, you are essentially creating that same internal calming mechanism. You no longer need another person to regulate your emotions. You no longer need external validation to feel safe. You become your own source of stability, and that fundamentally changes your relationship with the search for love. It's not that you've become incapable of connection. It's that you no longer need connection to feel complete. And that is a huge difference. Researchers at Binghamton University studied the phenomenon of ego dissolution and discovered something fascinating. During periods of ego dissolution, our first-person perspective is no longer present. The self disappears from sight. And this experience can be profound and positive, fostering a sense of unity with other human beings, with nature, and with the universe. Do you perceive the irony? When the ego dissolves, you actually feel more connected with everything and everyone, not less. And that reveals something profound about the nature of the love we seek. Conventional romantic love is exclusive. You love one person specifically, and that person completes you. But the love that arises when the ego dissolves is inclusive. You feel connected with the entire existence. It's not that you love less, it's that you love in such an expanded way that the narrow form of romantic love seems too limited. Kim Eng, Eckhart Tolle's partner for over 2 decades, was asked about what it's like to be in a relationship with someone awakened. Her answer is revealing. She explains that their relationship is not based on mutual need, but on shared presence. They don't depend on each other for completeness. They share a sense of wholeness that each one has found within themselves. This is the relationship model that becomes possible after a spiritual awakening, but it requires that you first find that completeness on your own. What you're missing isn't the ability to love, it's the neurotic need to seek love as a way to fill a void. And those are completely different things. Eckhart Tolle clarifies this brilliantly. He says your love isn't outside of you, it's deeply within you. You can never lose it, and it can't leave you. When you discover this experientially, not just intellectually, the external search loses its appeal. Why would you look outside for what you've already found within? But here's the question you're probably asking yourself right now. What if I still want a relationship? What if I don't want to be alone forever? Am I doomed to a solitary life just because I've awakened? That's exactly the right question. And the answer will surprise you. Tolle doesn't teach that relationships are bad or should be avoided. He teaches that relationships can be transformed when you bring presence to them. Whether you're living alone or with a partner, he says, the key is to be present and intensify your presence. The difference is the motivation behind the relationship. If you seek a relationship to complete yourself, to escape loneliness, to have someone who makes you happy, you're operating from the ego. And that relationship will inevitably bring suffering because it's built on a foundation of need and fear. But if you already feel complete in yourself, and you find someone who also feels complete, something different happens. You're not trying to fill each other's voids. You're sharing fulfillment, and that creates a completely different dynamic. Tolle calls this an enlightened relationship. It's when two people bring presence to the connection, instead of bringing need. And here's something crucial that differentiates these two types of relationships. In the ego-based relationship, there's constant fear of loss. You cling to the person. You try to control them. You monitor their movements, their friendships, their attention. Because deep down, you know your happiness depends on them. And if they leave, you crumble. In the enlightened relationship, there's no fear of loss because there's no attachment. You love the person deeply, but you don't depend on them. If they leave, you'll feel sadness, but you won't crumble. Because your completeness isn't in them. It's in you. That's the freedom that becomes possible when you find love within yourself first. And ironically, that freedom from attachment is what allows for the deepest love, because you're not loving to get something. You're loving because love overflows from you naturally. It's giving without expectation of return. It's pure presence with another human being. And here's something important that needs to be said. During the spiritual awakening process, it's completely natural and healthy for your interest in seeking relationships to diminish or disappear temporarily. This isn't a problem to be solved. It's part of the process. Think of it this way. If you've spent your whole life searching for water in external wells because you didn't know there was a spring inside you, and suddenly you discover that internal spring, naturally you're going to stop chasing after wells, not because you don't need water anymore, but because you found a source that never runs dry. The same goes for love and completeness. Once you find the internal source, the external search loses its urgency. This can last weeks, months, or even years. It depends on your individual process. And it's important that you honor this period without judgment. Society will pressure you. Family will ask when you're going to find someone. Friends will try to set you up. And you might feel like there's something wrong with you for not being interested. There's nothing wrong. You're going through a deep reconfiguration of how you relate to yourself and to the world, and that reconfiguration needs to happen before you can enter a relationship in a healthy way. Tolle offers powerful advice about this. He says that whenever your relationship isn't working, whenever it brings out the craziness in you and your partner, be happy. What was unconscious is being brought to light. This means that relationships, when you're awake, become mirrors. They show exactly where you still have work to do, and many people in the spiritual awakening process intuitively know that they aren't ready for that level of mirroring yet. They need time alone to do the internal work first, and that's wisdom, not avoidance. Tolle explains this phenomenon even more deeply. He teaches that each person carries what he calls a pain body. It's the accumulation of all unprocessed emotional pain throughout life. And in romantic relationships, the pain bodies of two people often activate each other. Have you ever entered a relationship and suddenly found yourself doing and saying things that don't seem like you, reacting in disproportionate ways, feeling intense emotions that seem to come from nowhere? That's the pain body being activated by the other person's pain body. And when you're in the process of spiritual awakening, you become acutely aware of this mechanism. You notice when your pain body is being activated, and you intuitively know that you need to first work with your own pain body before entering a relationship where it will be constantly activated. It's not that you're avoiding intimacy, it's that you're preparing for true intimacy, intimacy that isn't hijacked by the unconscious patterns of the pain body. But let me be clear about something important. There's a difference between not seeking relationships because you're at peace with yourself and have found internal completeness, and not seeking relationships because you're afraid of intimacy, of rejection, of being vulnerable. The first comes from awareness. The second comes from fear. And only you can know with honesty which one is operating in you. If you're avoiding relationships because you feel complete and don't feel an urgency to seek, that's probably part of your spiritual awakening. If you're avoiding relationships because you're afraid of being hurt, that's a wound that needs attention. The awakening doesn't make you immune to wounds. It makes you aware of them. And part of the process is looking honestly at your motivations. One way to test this is to observe how you feel when you see happy couples. If you feel genuine peace and joy for them, your lack of interest probably comes from fulfillment. If you feel bitterness, resentment, or even a pang of envy, it means there are unhealed wounds still affecting you. Similarly, pay attention to how you react when someone shows romantic interest in you. If you feel peaceful declining because you genuinely aren't interested right now, that's awareness. But if you feel an impulse to sabotage, to push the person away before they can reject you, that's fear talking. These tests aren't there to judge you. They're there to help you know yourself, and honest self-awareness is the foundation of any true spiritual path. Now, I'm going to tell you something that few spiritual teachers openly admit, and it might change how you see this entire process. Even the most advanced on the spiritual path sometimes experience loneliness. Even Tolle, even masters of ancient traditions. The difference is how they relate to that loneliness. Someone who hasn't awakened runs from loneliness. They seek relationships, distractions, anything to avoid being with themselves. Someone who has awakened embraces loneliness. They see it as an opportunity to deepen presence, to know themselves more deeply, to inhabit the silence. The loneliness is the same. The relationship with it is completely different. And when you change your relationship with loneliness, you change your relationship with relationships. You no longer need a relationship to escape yourself. And that frees you to enter into relationships in a completely different way. There's another aspect to this that's rarely discussed. When you're on a journey of awakening, your priorities fundamentally shift. Things that once seemed important lose their relevance, and things that once seemed irrelevant become central. The pursuit of status, of social validation, of external achievements starts to feel empty. And that includes the pursuit of relationships as a way to prove something to yourself or to others. How many people seek relationships because they genuinely want to share their life with someone? And how many seek them because they want to prove they're desirable, that they're not alone, that they've managed to win someone over? When you awaken, you see through these motivations, and the relentless chase that came from them simply ceases. That doesn't mean you no longer want connection. It means you no longer want connection for the wrong reasons. And that distinction is crucial. Many people mistake this for indifference or coldness, but it's actually discernment. It's knowing the difference between wanting something because it will complete you and wanting something because it will enrich a life that's already whole. Going back to what Eckhart Tolle said about relationships existing to make you conscious, if you enter a relationship when you're already reasonably conscious, the relationship becomes a practice field, a place where you can apply presence, observe ego reactions, grow in awareness. But if you enter a relationship unconsciously, seeking to be completed, running from yourself, the relationship becomes a battlefield, a place of projections, unmet expectations, and mutual suffering. Most relationships operate in the second mode. That's why so many end in pain. That's why so many people repeat the same destructive relationship patterns from relationship to relationship. And when you awaken and see this clearly, you naturally lose interest in entering that battlefield. You prefer to wait until you're ready to enter the practice field, and that's evolution, not a flaw. Most people will live their entire lives repeating relationship patterns based on need, entering and leaving relationships that follow the same script: initial attraction, honeymoon phase, conflict when needs aren't met, breakup or bitter stagnation, and then repeating it all again with someone else. You're breaking that cycle, not entering it until you're ready for something different. You've received something valuable in these minutes. You've received validation for an experience that most people around you don't understand. You've received knowledge about deep mechanisms that operate in the relentless chase for love. You've received permission to honor your process without guilt or judgment. This isn't common information. It's information that can transform how you see yourself, how you see relationships, and how you navigate this period of your life. But this kind of knowledge is rarely shared. Most channels talk about how to find love, how to attract a partner, how to never be alone, because that's what people want to hear. It's easier to feed the relentless chase than to question it. When you click the super thanks, you're saying that this kind of truth matters, that you value knowledge that liberates instead of knowledge that feeds needs. You're supporting a space where spiritual awakening can be explored honestly, without romanticization. It's not payment, it's positioning. It's you saying you've chosen awareness over conformity, and now, the final transformation. The practical step you can apply immediately, starting today. You're going to practice what I call the relentless chase inventory. This will help you understand clearly where your impulses related to relationships are coming from. First, every time you feel an impulse to seek romantic connection, stop. Don't act immediately. Simply observe the impulse. Where do you feel it in your body? Is it a constriction in your chest, a restlessness in your stomach, tension in your shoulders? Second, ask yourself with radical honesty, what am I seeking in this moment? Am I seeking to share wholeness or fill a void? Am I seeking presence with another or escape from myself? Am I seeking growth or distraction? There's no right or wrong answer. Just observe with curiosity. The goal isn't to judge yourself, but to know yourself. Third, regardless of the answer, don't do anything for at least 24 hours. Let the impulse be present without acting on it. Observe whether it persists, transforms, or dissolves. You'll discover that many impulses that seem urgent simply disappear when you don't act immediately on them. And those that remain after this period of observation usually come from a more authentic place. Fourth, start to notice patterns. When are the impulses to chase strongest? When you're bored, when you feel lonely, when something isn't going well in other areas of your life? These patterns will reveal a lot about the unconscious motivations behind the relentless chase. And here's the indicator that you're progressing in this practice. You'll know you're advancing when you realize you can feel the impulse to chase without being overwhelmed by it. When you notice that your inner peace doesn't depend on being in a relationship or not. When you feel that loneliness has transformed from enemy into ally. This doesn't mean you'll never want a relationship again. It means that when you do, it will stem from a place of wholeness, not from a place of neediness, and that changes everything. Eckhart Tolle sums this up perfectly. He says that for love to blossom, the light of your presence needs to be strong enough. So you are no longer dominated by the thinker or the pain body. That's the work, strengthening your presence until you are no longer ruled by the ego's demands. And when that happens, relationships become possible in a way they never were before. Not relationships based on need, fear, and incompleteness, but relationships based on presence, awareness, and true love. The love that has no opposite. The love that you can't lose. The love that's inside you right now, waiting to be discovered. The relentless chase isn't the answer. Surrender is. And when you surrender completely to yourself, you discover that the love you were searching for was always here, now. I want to hear from you, and I want you to be completely honest. Controversial question for the comments. Are spiritually awakened people who aren't seeking relationships more evolved? Or are they just rationalizing a fear of intimacy? 70% of people can't be honest about their true motivations. Can you? Comment fulfillment. If you genuinely feel that your lack of interest in pursuing relationships comes from inner completeness. Comment investigating if you're still discovering your true motivations. I'll be replying to every comment within the first 2 hours.